I always start my speeches with a quote or something that I found that seems relevant to me. And I got up this morning and I realized that I had not found my quote. And so I wasn't even going to tell you that I started with a quote. But I am a fan of Mary Oliver, if any of you have read her poems. So I have a few of her books. I moved to Tucson 2 years ago, and just briefly, my mom passed, my daughter got married, my granddaughter was born. And so life has been chaotic as I have moved into this house, so I'm still under construction, still finding things. But here was this book sitting right there, and it had a tab in it. And I opened it up thinking I'm going to leaf through this and see if anything pops out. And the book was literally tabbed to this spot. So if you will allow me, I will share the quote that I found this morning by Mary Oliver. And I thought it really, okay, I'll get there. I thought it really pertained to what we were talking about today. And I think as we go into it, you will understand more why this pertains. The grass never sleeps, or the roses, nor does the lily have a secret eye that shuts until morning. Jesus said, "Wait for me," but the disciples slept. The cricket has such splendid fringe on its feet, and it sings, have you noticed, with its whole body, and heaven knows if it ever sleeps. Jesus said, "Wait with me," and maybe the stars did. Maybe the wind wound itself into a silver tree and didn't move. Maybe. The lake far away where once he walked, as on a blue pavement, lay still and waited, wide awake. Oh, the dear bodies, slumped and eyes shut, that could not keep the vigil. How they must have wept, so utterly human, knowing this too must be a part of the story. So, with that, I will begin and tell you that although I am talking about the woman's brain, and we're going to get into that, I don't eat in the morning, so the shaking is coffee. We're going to talk about the woman's brain in menopause and the changes that happen in the woman's brain. Now, why in the world would a financial advisor be talking about women's brains? Because frankly, I've been financial advising for 30 years, and I can do it in my sleep. It isn't that I'm not continuing to learn, but this is new material for me, and so I often look for material when I'm speaking to groups that will speak to them, speak to me, and something that I can learn from. And so this material fell into my hands probably a year ago, Becky, we talked about this. At that time, I was talking about the women's brain in vitro and how our brains are developed as we are literally born. And so this same author wrote a book on the woman's brain in menopause. And so that's the material. As a full disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I have no medical training. I have a good ear and some common sense, but that's about it. So we are going to start at the beginning of the changes in our lives, which we know as perimenopause. Perimenopause is the beginning of the end of the ovarian function. It's an extended transitional stage with fluctuating hormones starting around an average age of 40 to 45, and it has a duration of 4 years. I suspect many of you are through that phase. I also suspect you remember how horrible it was. So women can go into this phase, especially, let me back up, I'm 59. So you're going to hear me, I'm not 59,
69.
Marcia.
You're 69.
I'm 69. I wouldn't have told, but Marcia's there going,
Should I say something?
yeah, so I'm 69, and so I'm going to use myself as reference. And I think this material is relevant not only for those of us who've already been through it, but we all are experienced to women behind us who are going through it. And we are a great source of knowledge and a hand up. So as women go through perimenopause, they go to their doctors, their OBGYNs, who have delivered their babies, who have counseled them perhaps on their marriage, who have done maybe a surgery or two. They become a really important woman in your life in those childbearing years. But as you hit perimenopause, generally those women have not been trained in the symptoms and the effects of perimenopause and menopause. So women will show up to this trusted advisor and walk away quite frustrated with the lack of answers. That certainly happened to me. Now, it's been a few years. Marcia tells me it's a little different now, but the books told me it's not. So we'll see what I'll think. This is a time when hormones are fluctuating wildly. And so to take a blood test to say, well, you're in perimenopause and here's where you are, it doesn't help the doctor. You really need at this time to take responsibility and track for yourself. When your cycle shortens by 1 or 2 days or more a year, you have begun. And as I said, the average age is 40 to 45. There are estrogen receptors in almost every organ in our body. I learned so much from this. I didn't know any of this. Perhaps you all had some coach or mom or someone who gave you all this insight, but I didn't. So this was an amazing learning moment for me. So estrogen, that's our happy drug, right? It is in, as I said, almost every organ in our body, and it is responsible for our heart health, our bone density, our sugar levels, and our cognitive integrity. Remember those days? As estrogen decreases in menopause, all of these organs are affected. Women show up at their doctors during this stage of life, reporting lack of sleep, night sweats, hot flashes, anxiety. My hand's up because I had all of these. Loss of control of emotions, acid reflux. Let me stop there. I got acid reflux. I was in menopause. I was sent to gastroenterologists for upper and lower GIs. There was nothing wrong with me. But I was put on medication that unfortunately I still take today, and there's still nothing wrong, for acid reflux. GERD. Acne. I have that one.
I didn't.
Anxiety, joint pain, arthritis, bloating, belly fat, breast tenderness, chronic fatigue, decreased sexual desire, dry eyes, dry mouth, dry skin, frozen shoulder, incontinence, irritability, apnea, sleep apnea, unwanted hair growth on my ear, hair loss, depression. Oh, I was diagnosed with depression. I wasn't depressed. I was going through perimenopause. And UTIs. I kept that one for last because during this time, all of a sudden in my life, I was having all of these urinary tract infections. Couldn't figure it out. They kept coming and coming. And I went to my physician because by this time I was working with specialists and physicians for all of these symptoms that were perimenopause. And he gave me a lecture on hygiene.
Oh, good.
You can imagine, I still remember it today. I was horrified. And it wasn't just a small lecture on hygiene. This is why perimenopause and menopause can go undiagnosed, because you're sent off to so many specialists that have nothing to do with it. In mid or late transition, which is what we're going to start to call menopause, and the upgrade, should be a time for women to safely receive or at least look into hormonal therapy. Now I'm going to divert here for a minute and tell you that for 20 years, and many of you probably lived through this, there was a study where it was decided that hormones were good for us in this phase in our life, and then it was decided that they advanced cancer, breast cancer. And so it was stopped dead. You couldn't get it out of the medical community, and in some places, you still can't. So I was in that time frame. It lasted 20 years. It was a study of thousands and thousands of women, but the back study was never done to show if these women were already susceptible to cancer and other diseases that were coming along. And so hormonal therapy was stopped for 20 years. What I did, and I don't even honestly remember how I did it, but I ended up talking to, she was a client. That was how she became a client. She was a naturopath. And I ended up going to her because I was losing my mind, weren't we all? And she took my blood, and I tell you this because as you're talking to younger women or you know someone in this, these are things to remember and think about that I think that they still happen today. So this naturopath took my blood and measured all of my hormone levels and had a pill compounded for me to make everything work. And for years, I will tell you, I told everyone, she saved my life. That's exactly how it felt. She had saved my life. And then she moved away. And I was back into the normal rat race. So I went to another naturopath. This naturopath took a test, said that my testosterone was gone. Oh, good. Okay. And she injected pellets into me. This is what everyone gets. Some of you may even remember, if you were on the birth control pill, this is the one everyone gets. Doesn't mean it's the one you should have, and you have to figure it out. So she injected me with pellets of testosterone and saw me a week or two later, and a blood test came back, and she looked at me and she said, "Have you killed anyone?" Because my testosterone levels were so high. At that point, I had moved my primary care to Mayo. Mayo's a wonderful place. Don't go there for hormones. They will not give them to you. And when they saw the level of my testosterone, they were very concerned for me from a health standpoint. So there's two examples, and it really proves you have to be an advocate for yourself and make sure that you're getting the help you need. The best thing to do, if you are in this place and know someone who is to keep track of your cycles and your moods and your symptoms. If your current doctor does not help you, there are doctors that specialize in hormone and menopause issues. I actually did a Google search, and I can tell you there were about 6. And I think some of them were naturopaths, which is fine. The point is that it's not prevalent, even today. There's still not a lot of knowledge or medical help out there. So here's a fun fact. On average, you store 7% visceral interabdominal fat before menopause. We all know about visceral fat, right? For menopause, about 7%. Now, here's something I didn't know, maybe you did. Menopause is 1 day. That's all it is, 1 day. It is the day exactly 1 year after your last period. That's it. 1 day, 1 year after your last period. Average age is 51. Unfortunately, so day 2, you're postmenopausal. Doesn't mean those symptoms stop though, does it? Those symptoms that we experience in perimenopause and then into early menopause, unfortunately can go on for 4.5 to 9.5 years. If you ask people who love me and are close to me, they will tell you that mine's gone on for 20. Now we're into postmenopause. Here we are, the transition. Here's a not so fun fact. On average, when you enter menopause, your visceral belly fat will increase to 23% on average. Clothes don't fit anymore, do they? I didn't know that, but I learned that, and I realized that for years, the last 5 or 6 at least, I've made a joke to all my friends that this is baby Chardonnay. And if I could just give birth to baby Chardonnay, it would all go away. The good news is I've learned I probably don't have to give up Chardonnay, but I do have 23% or more visceral fat in my belly. The second phase of life, that's where we are. This is the upgrade. It's also known as postmenopause. The upgrade is the wisdom phase that emerges after spending decades in the hormonal war zone, emerging into the most powerful identity stage of a woman's life, what was formerly known as menopause. I can tell by looking around this room that you women are there. Congratulations. Much of life after the upgrade still comes with tugging to fill specific roles, especially children and grandchildren. Some of you learned today that I moved to Tucson because I have 2 granddaughters here who are now 2 and 4. My son, interestingly, is telling me it's probably time I retire so I can spend more time with my grandchildren. Don't get me wrong, I love these girls. I'm not sure I want to spend the kind of time he's envisioning with them. But now is the time to ask ourselves, what do we want to do today? What do we want to be today? Who do you want to be in your transition and beyond? You have decades ahead of you following the reproductive phase of life. It's far from over. The transition gives us freedom from the fertility cycle and helps us in forming a new self-image, discovering our authentic selves, and realizing our new opportunity. This is the phase that is an opportunity to grow into the wisdom, strength, and resilience we've been primed for across our lifespan. Everybody feel that? I can see it in your eyes. The female brain, now here's where the brain comes in. How does this have to do with our brains? The female brain is wired for connection and communication at birth. If you'd heard speech number 1, you'd already know that. The upgrade literally allows these circuits to choose a new path, which has nothing to do with hormonal drives that dominate decisions made during our reproductive phase. Changes in circuits can build a stronger and more confident sense of self, making the wisdom gained from a lifetime of experience a neurological reality. The upgraded woman can even redefine what it means to be female. Here's some possibilities. We acquire a new directness. Everybody know that one? We shake up the status quo, redefine the rules of relationships, speak up for what's right. The new force to speak out freely feels a bit like driving a Maserati for the first time. It takes some getting used to. But once you do, you realize the world didn't end, and there's no going back. My poor son. We can obtain a new focus. Anxiety-provoking stress of multitasking is over. With the upgrade, we do one thing at a time. This isn't a deficit. It means you will become more engaged, more thorough, and better able to concentrate. Validation from within. We're no longer driven by female fertility hormones to seek external approval. We behave differently, and others respond to us differently. Many men will listen to us not because of how we look, but because of our wisdom and experience. I want to jump back here for a moment to show you what you know, the absurdity of the wheel, the hormonal wheel that we are on to reproduce and find a mate. And I was probably in early high school, and I remember myself and my girlfriends would do this. Did you ever do that? We must increase our bus. Would any of you do that now? Sure. Would you? There's doctors that can help you. No, I had this taken. I did too, as a matter of fact. The return of fearlessness. In the upgrade, the female brain is no longer stressed by its wiring being hormonally altered 25% every month. The freedom to solidify its circuitry allows easier access to firmness and conviction, unlike at any other time in a woman's life. Expansiveness. The hormonal motor that drove the hamster wheel of worry is disconnected at this time. I'm not sure that's true. I still worry a lot. The listening circuits for hearing your own mind, as well as understanding the thoughts and feelings of others, can be re-circuited. The brain circuits for gratefulness emerge, and knowing how to optimize them determines whether we age with vitality and curiosity or become prone to depression. Compassion for self and others activates joy circuitry you never knew you had, and these positive moods create the basis for robust brain health and freedom. The urges, obsessions, and delusions that your fertility hormones created around relationships and intimacy have released their grip. The post-fertile brain is now free to explore and expand intellectually and emotionally. That may not be good news for all men. This piece I had a great interest in, this following information, which actually was only discovered as recently as 2020. My mother and my grandmother both had dementia. So of course, I worry about that. Again, like I didn't know the belly fat, I didn't realize why I couldn't multitask. And as much as I love Marcia, she is a rabbit darter. And when we're talking, she'll throw something at me and I go, whoa, I can't do that. So I was concerned, is this menopause, or is this dementia coming at me? However, in doing this research on the subject of transition, I learned the following. It took a huge weight off of my shoulders, and perhaps yours too, or someone you love. As I said, this information was only discovered 5 years ago by scientists. Before the transition, we could multitask. We could hold two things in our mind at the same time. After the upgrade, there is a normal structural change in the brain. Your brain can no longer hold more than one thing at a time. If a second thought comes in, the first is literally knocked out into a black hole of lost words and forgotten ideas. This is a normal structural change and is how the brain works. This is not dementia. This is normal. We must learn to tell those around us to wait while I finish my thought. or give me a moment as I finish thinking out this project. Otherwise, your train of thought or the momentum built to complete your project can be knocked right out. Again, I can put my hand up. Now there's a black side to this. As we reach this point in our lives, scientists have discovered that if our mind is left to daydream, remember when we all dreamt of daydreaming? At this point in our life, without a goal or directions, things tend to go negative pretty quickly. I can't put my hand up for this, I'm still working, so I don't have a lot of time for daydreaming. That's usually when I sleep. What happens to us is something called rumination. Rumination is when your mind is replaying something over and over and over again that was traumatic to us in our past. Perhaps something we haven't thought about in decades, and yet there it is, around and around and around. Unfortunately, our wandering mind can lead us into the vortex of unhappiness, shame, guilt, and anger. Everything will look and feel worse than it is. So how do we break this vicious rumination? Well, it starts with how we talk to ourselves. It's what we believe to be true about ourselves. And can we put that setback or flaw into a new perspective? I'm not going to go into my story that led to rumination. We all have one. But I can tell you, not knowing this was happening to me, all of a sudden this event that happened in my life was spinning around and coming into dreams, driving me incorrect, just insane. Why is this back? Well, now I know why. And so I will tell you that this horrible experience in my life was created by a lie that I was told by a man that I chose to believe, and a lie that continued and continued until I realized I wasn't going to believe that lie anymore. But what happened for me that I finally came to realize after I read this material and literally released me from it is I remembered that since that experience, I have told everyone who is close to me or wants to be close to me, let's say that's a man, I can bear your truths. I will not tolerate your lies. That was a huge lesson for me from a very dark period. Again, I don't use that to give you my story, but to have you realize you all have that. Think back, what did you learn? And maybe it will release you. The Dalai Lama says 30 seconds of focusing on your breath every day is all you need to meditate. Anybody try meditation? I think it's a great nap. I love it, great nap. But 30 seconds I can do. Journal, refrain what is ruminating, and put the past into perspective. What did you learn? That's what I just covered. That helped you immensely as you've gone forward into life. If we are trapped in rumination, we must rethink those thoughts to avoid falling into depression and repeating old patterns. We didn't gain this much wisdom to be locked up by the magnetic pull of rumination. Now here's your last fun fact. 1/3 of all American women are in some stage of menopause. We are not alone. We have all, those of us who have been there can give a hand to those who are coming up. Those of us who have gone through the upgrade, congratulations, it's a great place to be. The upgrade is now the time to prioritize you. Be kinder, more loving, and more giving towards others. I don't think this group needs that message. The upgraded woman glows, radiates, both the sharp sword of wisdom that takes down an unjust culture, and compassion that cherishes her responsibility in creating a future for a younger generation and a future she will not live to see. That's exactly what you ladies are doing as you give a hand down to the younger women. Never stop trying to solve the puzzle of your life. Engage until the very end. You've already done this. Develop your own posse, your menopause. This is not a slow decline to the end. We are starting down the most vital, confident, and wise phase of our lives. Engage in purpose, your purpose. What is it you want to do? I can tell a lot of you already know that. I would encourage you to, if you are in this phase or know someone who is, to Google doctors, OBGYNs, whatever, who specialize in menopause. There are literally doctors or OBGYNs who are leaving that practice to help and study and learn more and counsel women who are in menopause. And I did do a Google search, and I might have said at the beginning, it's a pretty short list, but there's something there. This material came from 2 books that I got my hands on. One was The New Menopause by Mary Claire Haber. The other was Luann Brizantine, which is called The Upgrade. She's also the author that wrote The Female Brain. And then Lisa Mosconi wrote The Menopause Brain. I did not read that book, but she was referred to by both. That material is on the cards you have in front of you that Marcia was kind enough to print up yesterday as she headed down to see me in Tucson. And lastly, I want to recommend a book that has nothing to do with menopause, and it's called From Strength to Strength, and it's written by Arthur C. Brooks. Arthur C. Brooks runs a retreat, for lack of a better word, for people in this stage of life. And his premise is that you had all this strength and wisdom you acquired in your earlier years, but you don't want to do that anymore. But you have all of this strength and wisdom that you can now take into more of a teaching capacity. So it's very interesting. I found it to be interesting. I'm going to close with a quote. This one is from Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright says, "There is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." And with that, I thank you. I am happy to take questions. I am not a doctor. If I can't answer your questions on this material, Marcia will write them down and we will get you an answer. I'm also happy to take any questions on financial planning or economies or any of that if you're interested. I will put a disclaimer out there. I will not engage in any political conversations.